Cyberpunk 2077 is still one of my favorite games. I've tried getting back into some older games and even Starfield of all games these past few days, but even 4 years later, Cyberpunk is still a game that catches my eye. It's been a while since I've checked up on my YouTube or my Nexus mods. I know some people watch these because they follow a lot of my modding stuff, and I've seen some people asking when I'd upload more of these theory videos or more Cyberpunk videos. A few people were asking when I'd upload some more mods or when I'd update mods, but sadly I just haven't had a lot of time for gaming or to make videos lately. I remember some people telling me they were looking forward to them, so the Mr. Blue Eyes video and the Alt Cunningham video are still coming. I don't know if anyone will still be around to watch them or if anyone will even still be thinking about Cyberpunk by that time, but they're still coming. I'm really very happy people seem to like my 40-50 minute autistic ranting types of videos. I just haven't had enough time to put stuff like that together these days. There's a lot of stuff to write and then to look through and then to edit with those, and I just haven't been able to get a lot of that sort of stuff done lately. But I still felt like making a Cyberpunk video, and I wanted to try something different this time. No deep dive, no fan theory, nothing like the stuff I usually do. I don't even know what I'm going to put on screen for this one. Really, this is just going to be my personal take and my opinion about something in Cyberpunk. There's something I've seen a bunch of people talking about for a while now. I've seen a lot of different YouTube videos and a lot of different comments and different Reddit posts bringing this up. And if anyone's watching a video like this, you'll probably know exactly what I'm talking about. I've seen a lot of people debating Arasaka and the Arasaka ending in this game lately. For Cyberpunk, I think that Phantom Liberty restarted this whole debate about which ending is the best ending. But I've seen a lot of different comments and different YouTube videos saying that Arasaka was actually the good guy all along in 2077. Or maybe rather that siding with Arasaka is actually choosing the lesser evil in this story. That the Arasaka ending is really the one that's actually best for most of the people in Night City and the world in the Cyberpunk universe. And I mean, right off the bat, there are a lot of different arguments we could make for this. We already know the backstory that's supposed to lead directly into 2077. There was a unification war where Rosalind Myers actually started invading all the states around America that were refusing to submit to federal rule. This was an actual civil war where the NUS government and Militech were attacking and invading all these places like Night City, and the only reason Myers ended up stopping these invasions is because Arasaka agreed to join the war and agreed to defend Night City. Having Arasaka in America threatened a whole new global war that Rosalind Myers and the government couldn't afford, so they had to back off and leave Night City and the rest of the free states alone. So just according to this story, Arasaka is actually what saved Night City and all these different free states in America from a very militaristic and hostile government threatening to occupy them by force. Just having Arasaka around and on their side is what's allowing all these places to maintain their independence. So in a way, Arasaka is actually what's liberating entire parts of America from people like Rosalind Myers. In a way, Arasaka is actually preserving a way of life for what has to be millions upon millions of people. Then there's also what companies like Arasaka would have to offer people in places like Night City and around the world in general. Arasaka is supposed to be the largest corporation in the entire Cyberpunk universe that's almost, if not more powerful than most governments. So anywhere that Arasaka goes, billions and billions of dollars and a world of opportunities for people inevitably follows them. Going all the way back to the Cyberpunk tabletop books, the America in this universe is supposed to be a shadow of what it used to be. And even though the government took back a lot of its power by Cyberpunk Red and 77, there are still entire towns and entire neighborhoods that were left completely abandoned and torn down. Neighborhoods like Santo Domingo, which apparently used to be filled with nothing but homeless people and ruins, but by 2077 was completely redesigned from the ground up thanks to investments made by companies like Arasaka. And we know Arasaka's invested in a lot more than Santo Domingo. If you listen to some of the characters in the game or read the lore books, they say Arasaka is actually a member of the Night City Council, and just looking at their buildings and their different corporate assets, it's clear that they've poured billions and billions of dollars throughout all of Night City. And given just how large and multinational Arasaka is said to be, we know they're doing this around the entire world. So in this way, Arasaka is actually rebuilding and enriching entire communities that otherwise would have been left completely abandoned and torn down. But the simplest reason having them around would be a benefit is that Arasaka offers people jobs and a steady income. People who would otherwise be homeless or who would be living in total poverty with no way out can now find work and better their lives. This is the argument Takamura makes when he and V discuss Arasaka. He basically says Arasaka provides opportunity, stability, and order to the world around them. That back in Japan, they gave him an opportunity and got him out of the slums of Chiba 11 where almost no one gets out. From what we see throughout the series, working for Arasaka is hardly the best place to be, but compared to hopeless poverty and violence in the streets, it would still be a step up for the majority of people. And in places like Night City, where gang violence and crime are already a way of life, hopelessness and poverty would only lead to even more crime, to more violence, to more people dying on the streets. In most of the videos or the comments I've seen, the Takamura argument or something along those lines is usually the one people use to defend Arasaka, that despite the harm they do, they still make the world a lot safer or make people's lives better. And with all of this in mind, we really can't deny that Arasaka does do good, that having Arasaka around does bring lots of benefits, that they do make life a lot better for lots of people in the world of the Cyberpunk universe. But in my opinion, the idea that Arasaka is the lesser evil in this story is still simply just not true. And the idea that the Arasaka ending is the good ending to 2077 is definitely just not true. Because at the same time, there's a huge difference between doing good and being a net positive on the world. And if we're looking at this story and at Cyberpunk overall, then there's really no denying Arasaka does substantially more harm to the world than good. And I'm not even talking about the harm you might be thinking about. Now, don't get me wrong here, this is just a story, and Cyberpunk 2077 is just a video game. How you want to play the game and what ending you want to get is your business. And Cyberpunk is still a role-playing game, so V as a character is supposed to believe and think whatever the player wants. I'm not trying to tell you how to play your own game. But if we're just going to try and analyze this story and its characters, if we're actually going to try and say what ending would objectively be the better or worse ending, then there's a very glaring problem with Arasaka that I think gets completely ignored. Something I've seen a lot, and even in comments on my old videos, is that Arasaka is just like every other corporation in the Cyberpunk universe. That fighting Arasaka like Johnny Silverhand is stupid because nothing changes with or without them. That they're no different from every other company in Cyberpunk because they don't do anything you don't see every other corporation doing in Cyberpunk. Corporations that commit mass murder, ruin lives, and exploit people are supposed to be the norm within this universe. So somehow they're no worse than any other Cyberpunk megacorp. But if we're talking about Arasaka based on the way they're actually portrayed throughout this franchise, then quite frankly this whole argument is just blatantly wrong. If we were talking about any other megacorp in the franchise, then this would probably be true. In the Cyberpunk universe, all corporations are corrupt, abusive, and dangerous, and they've managed to just become an inescapable part of life. But there's one major problem that totally sets Arasaka apart from other corporations. One thing that makes them so much worse than every other company in this franchise. While we see other corporations causing destruction and exploiting in more isolated ways throughout the game and throughout the tabletop books, Arasaka is the only corporation that actively brings the entire Cyberpunk universe closer to World War IV. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Cyberpunk treated the Fourth Corporate War as World War III. It already happened in Cyberpunk. There were First, Second, and Third Corporate Wars between other corporations, but you barely ever hear about them in universe. But the one that tells you leveled entire cities and killed tens of millions of people around the world for 4 whole years was the Fourth Corporate War between Militech and Arasaka, the two most powerful forces in the entire Cyberpunk universe that already destroyed a lot of the world before. All throughout this game, you hear again and again a lot of people are terrified that a fifth corporate war could actually break out any day between these two companies all over again. And all throughout the game, everything Arasaka does is all but guaranteeing that happens. The reason why so many characters are afraid of World War IV is because everything we see Arasaka doing throughout the game is extremely provocative. The company just being in America is creating more and more tension with the government and with Militech, and then all throughout the game they just keep pushing and pushing that envelope. But worst of all, everything they're doing with the Relic and their whole Secure Your Soul program just in this game is literally just the latest step in Arasaka's scheme for what might be some form of actual world domination. This goes all the way back to the Cyberpunk tabletop books. Saburo Arasaka was dreaming of something like this and working towards this ever since Japan lost World War II. The other corporations use influence to get what they want moment to moment and place to place. The other corporations, including Militech, only need the power to conduct business uninterrupted. But Arasaka is the only corporation in the entire Cyberpunk universe that's at war with the entire world, that's actually trying to undermine, sabotage, or maybe even outright take control of every government, every company, and every authority around the world. If you're one of the people that watched my last video where I said I think using a second relic might be the real key to saving V, I said that Arasaka's Secure Your Soul program is basically a scam. In my opinion, this is a lot like the entire concept behind the relic. The game shows this to us but doesn't really give it the attention it deserves in the overall story, because at the very end of the game you find actual proof the entire program is really a giant conspiracy. Secure Your Soul is supposed to be a program that all but promises immortality to the world's most powerful people. In the game, they're constantly marketing this to the richest, the most famous, and the most important people all over the world, meaning the most elite and influential people on the planet are signing up and handing their minds to Arasaka. But we find out during the game that once these people are in Mikoshi, Arasaka is free to do whatever they want to them. In the Arasaka ending, V signs up for it, and Anders Hellman or Takamura plainly tell you an engram has no legal rights at all yet. Arasaka basically owns a person's consciousness once they upload it onto their servers, that according to current laws, Arasaka has the right to outright destroy them or do whatever it is they want to them. And this includes doing experiments and trying to alter their personalities and their memories however it benefits Arasaka. In the Lizzie Wizzy quest, when her manager/boyfriend is signing the deal to get her a spot in Secure Your Soul, he asks Arasaka to edit her engram and to change her personality back to the way she used to be. The Arasaka lady denies they can even edit engrams. First off, her denial is almost laughable, because she immediately doubles back and starts asking how much they'd have to edit. And second of all, at the very end of the game, when you're inside Arasaka Tower, you find indisputable proof that she was lying. There's a data shard in their lab that outright tells us word for word one of the program's top secret functions is the ability to edit personality constructs. This means once they get them into Mikoshi, Arasaka has a very roundabout way to completely hijack someone's mind, to rewrite all their thoughts and all their goals, their entire personalities, to erase everything they believe in and anything or anyone they used to care about, to make them carry out whatever agenda Arasaka has in mind for them, and it's a function they've been very carefully hiding from the public while they've been marketing this program to the most powerful and influential people around the world. Johnny Silverhand talks a lot about how taking someone's identity away from them is the worst thing you can do to them, and when Johnny tells V that Arasaka is coming after people's souls, he was actually right on a lot of different levels. This is the reason why Misty predicts the Arasaka ending would involve losing control and subjugation, why she says Arasaka would betray V, because once V becomes an Arasaka engram, nothing's stopping Arasaka from reprogramming V and turning V into whoever they want V to be. Once a person dies and leaves their engrams in Mikoshi, Arasaka is free to subjugate them by reprogramming them and turning them into slaves for Arasaka. This is one of many reasons that I think the Arasaka ending is without a doubt the worst ending in the game, even worse than the suicide ending. In the game, Takamura and Hellman basically tell you this is your only realistic option, that V should just face reality and take this only chance at staying alive. But this is hardly V's only hope for staying alive. These characters are just feeding you their own narrow-minded version of events, and more importantly, most of the entire game was already about stopping Johnny from taking over V's mind and destroying V's identity. So allowing Arasaka to brainwash V, strip away V's free will, or rewrite V's identity is the same exact thing V spent most of the game trying to avoid, but magnitudes worse. And Johnny Silverhand, the one person who arguably knows V better than anyone in this story, has to give up his chance of having a second life or being with Alt just so V can lose it all anyways. But aside from what this would do to V, Secure Your Soul might actually just be one of the most dangerous things in the entire Cyberpunk universe, because if Arasaka managed to get the right people into Mikoshi, then they would essentially have control of most of the world. If the right world leaders, powerful officials, community leaders, or even high-powered executives from other corporations were in Mikoshi, then they would have access to every level of influence you can imagine. They would have access to all these people's secrets. They would be able to get these people to use their influence however Arasaka wanted them to. Secure Your Soul is only supposed to take effect when the original person dies, but just that potential alone is already dangerous, and given how monolithically powerful Arasaka is supposed to be in Cyberpunk, it wouldn't even be hard for them to just kill the influential people they needed out of the way. In the game, you find Saburo's journal, and it actually says he was literally considering nuking all of Night City just to stop Yorinobu from handing over the Silverhand relic to Neckwatch. So Arasaka is just using this idea, this promise of immortality as one gigantic conspiracy for actual world domination. And in the Cyberpunk books, Arasaka's been working towards doing this since Saburo took over the company. It says he took control in 1960, so by 2077 they've been planning to secretly gain control over the world for more than 100 years. And aside from just allowing Arasaka to control the world, another glaring danger in this plan is that there's no way the rest of the world would actually stand by and let them do this. We hear about this in 2077. In Cyberpunk 2020, Arasaka thought they could destroy Militech. They got into the Fourth Corporate War, which was Cyberpunk's World War III, thinking they were powerful enough to wipe out Militech. But even though Arasaka was the most powerful megacorp in 2020, this still ended up creating a 4-year war that killed tens of millions of people across the planet before Arasaka lost. As powerful and as dangerous as they're supposed to be, Arasaka isn't as infallible as they think they are. They've been beaten by ragtag mercenaries, Militech, and the NUS government before. And secrets are hardly safe in the Cyberpunk universe. In this game, Sandra Dorset was one netrunner working for Nightcorp, and she ended up single-handedly breaking straight through their security and finding all their secret projects. And then in Cyberpunk Edgerunners, Lucy single-handedly starts hacking and sabotaging Arasaka's entire cyberskeleton program all by herself for months and months. In this universe, if a single netrunner can really do all of this, then what hope does Arasaka really have of keeping this a secret? And if some random chick's boyfriend is already asking if Arasaka can go ahead and rewrite his girlfriend, then it's only a matter of time before everyone around the world starts asking if Arasaka is doing this to world leaders, officials, executives, and just brainwashing the most powerful people in the world for their own purposes. In the game, Arasaka is already killing government officials on live television. They're already obstructing Rosalind Myers and sabotaging Militech at every opportunity. So much so the characters are already talking about a fifth corporate war. So what would happen if not just Militech, but the rest of the Cyberpunk universe found out there was a top secret agenda that could let Arasaka take over the world? Arasaka already caused World War III alongside Militech, but they're actively guaranteeing World War IV with this whole conspiracy. A war that would be even more devastating this time around. This is why Arasaka is without a doubt the worst megacorporation in the Cyberpunk universe. No other company, not even Militech, is doing something this dangerous in this entire game. And more specifically, this is another reason why the Arasaka ending is the worst ending in the game. Because it's the ending that not only makes Arasaka more powerful, but it keeps Mikoshi around and it keeps this plan in motion. It all but guarantees that Arasaka only grows bolder and that a fifth corporate war actually happens. And the reason why I think this, the most insidious and the most dangerous thing about Arasaka that no other corporation in this franchise ever comes close to, is actually Saburo Arasaka himself. More than anything, the reason why the Arasaka ending can never be the good ending in my opinion is because this is the ending that brings Saburo back from the dead and puts him back in power. This is what I think a lot of players kind of overlook when they say the devil ending is the good ending, or that it's the best ending for Night City or for the rest of the Cyberpunk universe. Saburo is almost more of a plot device in Cyberpunk than a character. And in Cyberpunk, Saburo Arasaka is the closest thing to a supervillain. While Yorinobu Arasaka was actually trying to get rid of a lot of the bad aspects of Arasaka all throughout the game, the Arasaka ending only plays out one specific way. Siding with Arasaka always means helping Hanako get rid of Yorinobu, resurrect Saburo, and restore him as the company's CEO. And no ending that brings Saburo back or puts him in power can ever be a good ending. Because Saburo Arasaka is the entire reason why Arasaka is so provocative and so dangerous in the first place. Even before 2077 and the Relic and Secure Your Soul, Saburo Arasaka was always a megalomaniacal madman single-handedly plotting some sort of global domination, who was always single-handedly bringing the world closer and closer to a new world war. Saburo was the one who came up with Secure Your Soul. Saburo was the one who was ready to outright nuke Night City just to stop Yorinobu. And ever since he saw Japan surrender in World War II, Saburo was dreaming of the day that he could weaken, manipulate, and even outright dominate every government and every authority around the world to give Japan a sort of ultimate power. It wasn't enough for him to just make Arasaka the most successful or the most powerful corporation in the world. In the books, the only reason he took over Arasaka and worked so hard to revolutionize the company was so he could have a way to gain leverage, power, and some sort of control over every other company and every other country in the world, so that he could subvert the entire global power structure and give Japan free rein to do whatever they want across the world. Saburo is supposed to be the oldest person alive in the Cyberpunk universe. He was born in Imperial Japan and he fought in World War II under the Imperial Japanese Army. And the way he's written as a character even does have a real-world basis. In real life, the Imperial Japanese, at least generally, did believe their country was a divine country. They believed in Shinto mythology that said the Japanese emperors were descended from the gods, and this was a big part of their nationalist propaganda. It was what they used to justify their belief that their country should subjugate or dominate other countries no matter the cost. And this is supposed to be the mentality and the ideology behind Saburo. This is exactly what he does with Mikoshi and Secure Your Soul in the video game. In the books, he had Arasaka doing global surveillance, stealing secrets, interfering in global politics, and even outright committing political assassinations all around the world. But by 2077, Saburo is literally out to steal people's souls so that he can use their secrets or their influence to control most of the world. For Saburo, it'll never be enough until Arasaka and Japan have completely dominated the entire world around them. While other corporations like Militech engage in conflicts case by case as a means to an end, Saburo actively undermines and makes enemies out of everyone on Earth at the same time. And this is why bringing Saburo back from the dead is just about the worst thing V can do. This is an incredibly dangerous and antagonistic mindset, and having him around specifically is what guarantees a fifth corporate war inevitably happens. Even in the books, it was very clear that Saburo's schemes would single-handedly turn most of the world against Arasaka. And given how Saburo talks so cavalierly about dropping nukes across Night City, it's very clear what he would do if most of the world actually turned against him. It's very clear just how many people he's willing to kill and just how much destruction he's willing to cause. No other character in Cyberpunk is as dangerous as Saburo is single-handedly. Now, some people might argue the Arasaka ending shows Saburo wants to make peace with the NUSA. You hear news reports during that ending saying he wants to meet with Rosalind Myers and sign a peace agreement, but that doesn't prove there's going to be any sort of peace in the long term, because everything we know and everything in the game shows us his intentions aren't even remotely genuine. In this ending, the top-secret brainwashing program in Mikoshi is still in effect, and Saburo is still moving forward with his plans. Saburo says he wants to make peace with Rosalind Myers, but in those same news reports, Saburo says that Yorinobu willingly sacrificed his life out of love and duty so that he could come back from the dead, and we all know this is a blatant lie. There's a reason it says Mikoshi's mind control functions are a secret. It's because just like in the books, Saburo is still smart enough to know he has to bide his time. His surveillance programs, his political moves, or his mind control program only work if the rest of the Cyberpunk universe is fooled long enough to give him everything he wants. So he can sue for peace only to stab everyone in the back somewhere later down the line. Saburo's whole vision is so dangerous that he's the one character in Cyberpunk who could actually end up destroying the entire world, or at least as of 2077. But just for the sake of argument, even if the devil ending completely removed Saburo from the company, the entire Arasaka Corporation in Cyberpunk was written around Saburo and his beliefs in Japanese exceptionalism, on his goals of giving Japan global dominance and ultimate power. Even just the strategies and the goals that he's laid out for the entire company makes the entire Arasaka Corporation a threat to the world even after he's actually dead. Throughout the game, Secure Your Soul is still continuing even though the board and Yorinobu and the rest of Arasaka think Saburo's gone. Tensions between Arasaka and Militech are still rising even with Saburo gone. So whether he's actually around or not, Saburo Arasaka is the biggest reason why Arasaka is the worst and the most dangerous corporation in the franchise. All in all, these are the reasons why I think the Arasaka ending is really the worst ending in the game. These are the reasons why choosing the devil ending is the worst choice V could make, not just for themselves, but for Night City and for the world. It's because Arasaka is the only corporation in Cyberpunk that's actively making war with the entire world, that's actually making a play for some kind of actual world domination, that's actually developed a way to take away people's identities and turn them into slaves for Arasaka. It's the only corporation built around a total madman who thinks he can outplay the entire world and still come out on top, who's already caused World War III and still doesn't care if he causes World War IV just to try and achieve some twisted dream from over 130 years ago. Corporations in Cyberpunk regularly cause death and human suffering, and that might just be a part of life in this universe, but Arasaka is very different and far more dangerous than every other megacorp in this franchise. Takamura very sanctimoniously tries telling V that Arasaka is honorable, that working for Saburo Arasaka was honorable, that the good they do for the world ultimately outweighs or even justifies the harm they do, but Takamura is very clearly indoctrinated and just outright delusional. No amount of income, work, stability, or security can justify or make up for the deaths of tens of millions of people. No amount of good or worldly benefit makes up for causing World War III, for threatening to cause World War IV and plunging the entire world back into chaos 50 years later all over again. Now, like I said earlier, I saw a bunch of things that inspired this video, and one of the big things was a video by a YouTuber I really like called Handsome Tez. And one of the arguments he made was that destroying Arasaka would actually leave a power vacuum that other corporations would go to war to try and fill, that Arasaka maintains a status quo by keeping a sort of dominance over other corporations, that not having Arasaka to fill this role the way they do in all these stories would be a really bad or maybe catastrophic for the Cyberpunk universe. This was an argument I never would have thought of. The idea itself is very believable and very true to life, and I kind of wish we saw a story like this somewhere in Cyberpunk. But in this particular case with Arasaka, I don't think this is actually true. First of all, a power vacuum could only really exist, or at least would only really be noticeable, if Arasaka was the only company that was significantly larger than every other company. You'd only have these long, protracted wars or conflicts if all the other companies competing to replace Arasaka were all equally weak or small. But in Cyberpunk, there's another corporation that's already an even match for Arasaka. Militech is more or less just as powerful as Arasaka. The two companies are supposed to be in pretty much the exact same business, and both these corporations are supposed to be the largest corporations on the planet by leaps and bounds. Militech has even beaten Arasaka before in the Fourth Corporate War, and by 2077 Militech has completely joined forces with the NUS government, so in some ways they might even be more powerful than Arasaka. So even if Arasaka isn't around, there isn't any other corporation in Cyberpunk that could ever hope to start some kind of war with Militech. But second of all, this scenario already happened in the Cyberpunk franchise before this, and we never saw any sort of wars or prolonged conflicts from a power vacuum. Cyberpunk 2077 isn't the only time Arasaka was taken out of the picture. At the end of Cyberpunk 2020, Arasaka was completely gutted. All their American assets were seized and they were sent back to Japan. And going all the way through Cyberpunk Red all the way to 2077, things are completely peaceful and uneventful. Cyberpunk Red already proves that with or without Arasaka, the rest of the Cyberpunk universe already has all the power players it needs to sort itself out. In my opinion, there's no question that siding with Arasaka is the worst choice in the game. There's already every indication throughout the story that the Arasaka ending takes away V's whole identity and turns V into a slave for Arasaka. There's every indication that this is supposed to be a tragic ending that forces V to accept the very thing they were trying to avoid just for a chance at staying alive. But aside from just what happens to V, there's every indication that this is the worst thing that can happen to the world of Cyberpunk itself. And I don't think there's any scenario where Arasaka is the lesser evil in Cyberpunk. If we're really debating within this story and this game, then there's no denying Arasaka does do good, that they do help people in some ways, but no amount of good that they can do outweighs them plotting world domination and causing a fourth world war. In my opinion, the real lesser evil in this story would actually be the endings where Alt Cunningham destroys Mikoshi, where Arasaka scraps Secure Your Soul, loses their ground, and ends up leaving the NUSA. There's never actually an ending where they're completely destroyed, just weakened, but without them around, Rosalind Myers and Militech would have no reason to go to war, and with their company in shambles, there wouldn't be any wave or any reason for a fifth corporate war. Now, these endings would still definitely cause some harm. The Nomad ending and Legend endings already kill a ton of people in and of themselves, and they probably mean a lot of people would end up losing their jobs and end up in poverty. They might even mean Night City gets invaded by Rosalind Myers. And going back to the power vacuum theory, they could even mean having small-scale conflicts between a few smaller companies looking to expand. But none of these things would even remotely compare to a full-blown world war. None of this would actually compare to all the harm that Arasaka does to the world. So even if it means sacrificing all these jobs, even if it means sacrificing Night City, and even if it means some people die, the objective lesser evil in this story can only be to actually sacrifice Arasaka to prevent much larger harm. If we're just looking at the choices V can make in this game, well, this is the one that objectively leads to the least amount of harm, that objectively leads to the best possible outcome, both for V, but also for Night City and for the rest of the Cyberpunk universe. But that about wraps up the video. And really, these are just my thoughts and what I think about the Arasaka ending in Cyberpunk. Like I said, there wasn't a lot of planning for this video. Whatever you're seeing on screen, I'm going back and putting it in later. I didn't really go back and edit this one as carefully as I usually do, so if you think I'm missing something glaringly obvious, just tell me down in the comments. And if you're one of the people who tell me you like my more autistic, obsessive, ranting kind of videos, then you'll have to forgive me. I'm being a lazy prick with this one. But I don't know. Hopefully it was entertaining. Let me know if you liked it, if you agreed, disagreed. As always, thanks for watching, and stay tuned. Take care.